Today we are bringing back the Swedish Empire. The Swedish Empire was a pretty big empire. It's probably the second biggest country in Europe, after Russia, of course. But I think it passed Ukraine. The goal with the Swedish Empire was to take over the whole Baltic Sea. Like, that was the goal. And this was the peak, kinda. So it was pretty close, but they didn't complete it. So let's see if they can do this in today's video. And if you look at the map, they own this piece of Norway. We split it in two. They took over all of Finland, kinda. I had to redraw the border so it was accurate, which means that some parts, like up here, it's Finnish, but I just gave them to Russia because that was the easiest thing. They took some land of Russia, most specifically St. Petersburg, and they're around there. The whole of Estonia, around half of Latvia, and also they took over Bornholm, I think it's called, and also some German things here, which looks pretty disgusting, but that's how it is. And I'm not including like the colonies. So Sweden, or the Swedish Empire, is gonna be colored in red. So I'm just gonna do that real quick.
Hi, Editor Yak here. I just want to say I forgot to mention that I made Sweden stronger in the video so that it would be funnier to watch, because otherwise it couldn't do as much as it did in this video.
So now Sweden is gonna go after the first country, and this country is gonna be Latvia. Latvia have already lost their capital, and yes, Sweden just wants to invade them. So Swedish troops are now entering into Latvia from their border with the aim of cutting off Latvia, which they do, and they take over the whole right part of Latvia, eastern part. Then they move down, cut Latvia in two again, take over this army, and then just take over the rest of the country. And we have full annexation of Latvia. Next up on this list is Lithuania, but something surprising happens. Russia and Belarus also declares war on Russia on a different part, or what you wanna say. So they are not teaming up, they are both just declaring war on Latvia. So we now have Swedish troops that were already stationed in Latvia because they invaded them, going down into northern Latvia. We then have Russian troops pushing up from Kaliningrad, which goes very well, and they meet up with Belarus and takes out a big portion of southern Latvia. No, Lithuania, sorry. Okay, we then have Swedish troops pushing more down into Lithuania and take over a big part of the country. And we then have the rest of it being taken over by Russian and Belarus troops. So we're now gonna take a look at the peace treaty. Okay, as we can see from this peace treaty, Belarus gets some land over here, Kaliningrad, Russia gets much of land, but it's basically split between Kaliningrad, aka Russia, and Belarus, and Sweden gets the other half, so they take over all of the coast, I think. And what is Sweden's goals now? They'll focus over on the Baltics. Germany is a very strong country, Poland is really pretty strong. Russia is also pretty strong. So they're actually gonna declare war on Norway. Yep, that's what they're gonna do now. So Swedish troops are now entering in from the border of Norway up here. They're mostly gonna focus on this part because this is the more valuable part of Norway. They start a campaign to reach or surround Oslo, which is going pretty well. They also are gonna try to encircle a big portion of the Norwegian army, which goes successful, and that whole area is wiped out, a really big area, and a big loss for Norway. They are now pushing down and reaching the Norwegian coast, and also closing in on Oslo, but not fully reaching the city. Up north, Sweden is like pushing up here, cutting off, taking some coast. Yeah, it's like, yeah, just basically is close to nothing here but mountains. So like no people. So it's pretty easily, they take over it pretty easily, but they're too lazy to take over this part for now. Back south, we have the capturing of Oslo, and they start pushing down through the Norwegian coast, and do the same thing up north. The goal is to meet up around here, which I don't know which cities it exists there, but I actually don't care, and they meet up there. And now the rest of Norway is kind of just like a big encirclement. It's kind of just falls. They're just pushing around, capturing small pieces of their army, and Norway surrenders. I just gotta fix. So, and Norway surrendered. So now we're gonna take a look at the peace treaty. And that is just full annexation. Sweden is really big. What is Sweden gonna do now? They are, of course, gonna declare war on Russia. No. They're, of course, gonna declare war on Russia. Third time's a charm. They're gonna, of course, declare war on Russia. And together with that, bring Belarus into the war. So first, we're gonna see Sweden just push out from their Finnish and Norwegian border with Russia, and just kind of push out here. It's not much here, so yeah. And the aim of cutting off this peninsula, which I think is called something like Kola or something like that. And the armors managed to do that. Over here, they are trying to wrap around this whole lake, which the armors managed to do, but Russia still holds strong over here. And from the Russian and Estonian part, they're pushing out and trying to do an encirclement over here, which they don't manage to do, but we'll see. They also push down into Belarus and into Kaliningrad and take over the coast, but not the entire part. Now the spearhead is complete, and they managed to cut off Kola, which then they start thickening their front against, and doing another kind of cut off from the rest of the Kola peninsula. And they are slowly starting to eat all of this land until it's all taken over. But right now the few Russians that are in Kola are managing to hold out pretty well. Down here they are completing their quest of surrounding the lake, and also the encirclement here, where a huge part of the Russian army is taken away. And we also see them take over Kaliningrad. Now you might wonder, how is they managing to do this against Russia? It's one of the strongest. It's the second strongest military in the war, and also plus Belarus. So the thing is, the Swedish Empire took a huge toll on the Russian economy because they lost this part really valuable, and also really very poor trade. So in this universe, Russia is pretty weakened and has dropped down many places on military rankings, maybe to like 7th, because they can't keep up with their economy are busted. And Sweden here who is a pretty powerful country, one of the most in Europe, and when they get all that land, they're gonna be a pretty strong country. I mean, like Sweden and Finland together are pretty strong, plus Estonia, plus Latvia, and these important parts of Russia, which is great for the economy also, and this part of Germany, which is really valuable. They get their military is stronger than Russia, and also Russia didn't really expect this. It was more of a surprise invasion of Russia. But now Russia and Belarus are actually gonna manage to have some pushbacks. Belarus are pushing them back almost all the way to the border, as well as trying to retake Kaliningrad, which goes pretty well. Russia was a pretty small encirclement, but with a huge part of the Swedish armor, and capture it. Why just getting back a bunch of land? They're trying to take back or get a connection with this lake, where I don't know the name of, but they fail. They also try to take back some parts of this in Russia, but they don't manage to do too much against the Swedish. But now Sweden does their pushback. They yet again take over all of Kaliningrad and push now further into Belarus. They push down, capture this part of Belarus and take it out. They also go out from the border, and now as a new goal, cut off Belarus from Russia, which they try to do a campaign for. They're also gonna use this spearhead to also try to invade Moscow, but also try to encircle a big part of the Russian army. This spearhead is thickened, so it doesn't easily break, and also Sweden starts a campaign from this lake to meet up with the spearhead. Russia realizes what's happening, so they're trying to break their spearhead from both sides, and they actually managed to stay strong, but Russia managed to evacuate out a bunch of soldiers before the spearheads connect up, complete a huge encirclement, and wipes out a big portion of the Russian army. And also, even better news for Sweden, their campaign to cut off Belarus worked, and now Belarus realized that they stand no chance and surrender to Sweden. And now it's only Russia versus Sweden. A pretty classic battle they have fought on some wars in the past. I'm pretty sure Moscow is like right there, so Sweden is gonna try to make a push for it. But before they retake what they had before, Russia puts them back and thickening the front line, taking over more parts of the Kola Peninsula, but still doesn't manage to take over it to 100% because the Russian resistance up there. They now start a spearhead, trying to aim for Moscow, and also in the process trying to cut off a big portion of what's left from the Russian army. But the best Russian generals, they like kinda died in this encirclement right here, so you don't really see this before it's too late and Russia's army is getting obliterated. They totally get wiped out, and now Sweden is closer than ever to Moscow. They surround the capital, and it's starting a siege. At the same time, they're thickening the front line, and finally they take over this entire peninsula, or the Kola Peninsula. They are now also starting a push down to the more southern parts of Russia, also very important economic parts of Russia. They also thicken their siege around Moscow and even makes a smaller encirclement, still pretty big, and wipe that out. Sweden then goes down south and take over major important parts of Russia, even reaching the Black Sea. And Sweden take over Moscow. And at the same time, Russia surrenders. So now we're gonna take a look at the peace treaty. And this is how the peace treaty turned out. Sweden got the whole of Kola Peninsula, all the surrounding area of this lake. They basically took over all the most western part of Russia over here, Kaliningrad, and some northern parts of Belarus. And I think that's gonna do it for today's video. If you maybe want to see a part 2 where Sweden tries take over the whole Baltic Sea, so can I probably make that. Like and subscribe only if you like and want to. But yeah, I maybe will see you in the next video. Bye!